please share with us what, obviously following up your conversation with friend of the show, Sam Sachs, from earlier today, and what the current state of affairs are right now. On the one hand, we get the report that Putin is putting his nuclear people on alert. And then on the other hand, we hear that there are potential ceasefire talks happening at the same time. So based on your intel and what you've been researching, what do you see as the current state of affairs regarding the Ukraine crisis?
Whew, man. It changes so quickly. You guys can hear me, right?
We can hear you, but I'm just going at this with the presumption of we're being lied to. So let's start with that and go from there.
I think that let me gather my thoughts. I think that if you look at it in context, this is the result of decades of tension between Russia and the West. NATO expansion has not helped. Russian actions have not helped either. These are two superpower forces basically kind of coming together with Eastern Europe caught in the crossfire. And the actions that Russia took last week, almost like a week ago now, to invade Ukraine and basically try and take over the entire country, which is what they're trying to do now, that's a huge escalation of an already really tense situation. So I don't know. Where do you feel like you're being lied to, I guess?
Well, for one, I just happened to catch a clip that Peter had forwarded me today that was on The Rising that Kim Iverson did, where she fact-checked a bunch of things that have been out, whether it's stories or pictures or, anecdotes of all the horrible things that are happening. Right. And she debunked all of them. Like either it was an old picture or it was, and that's the problem. And what we're getting here, especially people that watch our mainstream narrative, it's like you're either hearing somebody beating a war drum, or they're just, I just feel like we're not getting accurate information.
And then to top it off, you've got people on like Trump's side in particular that are cheering on Putin. It's like, at what point does this become like, it's nuts. It just becomes this whole, can we figure out a way to put a partisan lens on every single thing going on? That's what it seems.
Right. I think there is a lot of propaganda coming out of both sides. We talked about this a lot on the show today, just about how both sides are obviously propagandizing their audiences a lot. But I think a lot of it is, I don't really know if like this is the right exact wording, but it's kind of like some of it can be really organic, where you have something like, there's I'm not talking about any of like the specifics that anybody may have like debunked or something like that, but like, something happens, a little urban legend starts because it's a place of like heightened tension and war. And then you like put in social media and the way the information is shared now, and things just kind of explode from there. I think like the ghost of Kiev was something that people were talking about a lot today.
Yeah.
That looks like the Snake Island thing looks like it's not true. Snake Island looks like it's just like that was just straight up manufactured propaganda. Don't know by who, but it was certainly taken advantage of, obviously, by the Ukrainian government, who I think at this point need any attention that they can get. They need to keep the world's attention on them. So they're obviously going to but like propaganda takes other forms too. Like there's like Zelensky doing his video where he's like standing outside of the building with like his ministers, and that's of course not like a lie. Like he is there, but that's a very effective propaganda technique to show that he is still there. So I think that there's a lot of that going on. Like obviously in Russia, people are still being told that it's just like a limited peacekeeping operation that is being done in Donetsk. So there's a lot of misinformation spreading around, but as far as like the basic facts of the conflict are really not in question, right? Like this is Russia invaded Ukraine. They are trying to basically just decapitate the entire state, essentially, and what their end goal is a little difficult to really know, but obviously they don't want the government that is in power right now to be in power, and they want something more friendly, whether it's something where they are, then in power, they're just completely in control, or if it's just like a puppet state. But either way, I mean, that's what they're going for, and that's really, I think, the real issue that we need to be kind of like that. Those are the facts. What you're being lied to about, like there's a lot of propaganda, but the basic facts I don't think are really in dispute.
My biggest issue with this is really not to do whataboutism, because I do think it's not okay for somebody to invade a nation. Like that's not okay to do that. I'm opposed to it. But I kind of feel like, where do we get off? If we had a country neighboring us that was in a vulnerable position, like those two parts of the Ukraine, from my understanding, or that have any sort of sympathy for Russia, if we had something similar to like that, we would have had slave labor camps there like 10 years back and justified it in some way. Like I feel like we are the most imperialist bullies in the world. And so for people to get holier than thou with this and be like, oh, Putin's such a bad guy, it's like, yeah, he's an imperialist, he's a capitalist, but I find it really frustrating. I don't know if I expressed that properly.
I think that no, I got that. I think that like a good way to look at this is, Ukraine is basically being fought over by the U.S. Not by the U.S., but by like the West as a whole, and Ukraine on the other side, right? So, yeah, they're like, so in 2014, the government changes over to be more pro-Western in something that a lot of people have described as a coup. Then the breakaway regions in Donetsk, say that they want to go to Russia. Hey, maybe they do, maybe they don't. Like maybe the majority of people do, maybe they don't. That's kind of irrelevant to what's really going on, which is just these two great powers are just kind of playing with this country. They're pushing it back and forth between the two of them. So I think that the reason that this is such a big deal is that by invading, what Russia has essentially done is to upend like 70 years of basically like a status quo between it and the West. Like even after the Cold War, even after the USSR collapsed, like that kind of like détente kind of reasserted itself, and an invasion war of conquest of this type hasn't been seen in a really long time. So I think that's why people are kind of freaking out about it. As far as like, where does the U.S. get off? I mean, like, obviously, the U.S. has no moral standing to lecture any other country about what it does. Of course, like, there's no question about that. That doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean that all of their criticisms are in a vacuum wrong, right? Like in a vacuum, sure, like maybe they're right. Is the hypocrisy a little bit difficult to take? Yeah, I mean, it is, and I think that I think that we saw a lot of that in the media coverage of this conflict, where of the war so far, where people are talking about this as if it's like this level of war is like a unique situation, when obviously it's not. Many other parts of the world go through the same thing. As far as like the actual reality of violence, it's not particularly unique. What is unique about it is the like geopolitical kind of ramifications of it, if that makes sense.
We're speaking with Eoin Higgins, freelance journalist, in regards to what is current status of Ukraine and Russia with the war that is going on in Eastern Europe. I think that one of the things that struck me, and I'm sure struck you, Jen, today, which is somewhat completely unheard of, is the fact that Switzerland decided to get involved, and they never get involved in anything. And the fact that they now say to Putin that we are freezing Russian assets in their Swiss banking system, I mean, that's really serious stuff. And
Well,
what I worry about, and what I think, Jen, you would agree with, is Putin is a madman. And he is somebody who, if you squeeze him too tight, you have to wonder, how far is he willing to go? I think that that's a question when you think about economic sanctions regarding Russia right now, and of course the looming issue of where does China fit into this. What do you see happening regarding economic sanctions? Do you see that as being the end game, that eventually it will just become too overwhelming for Russia to deal with, that they'll have to back off? What do you see?
Well, I think the reason that Switzerland got involved, again, is what I was referring to by this kind of like just upending of the established order for decades, right? Like, I think that is the major reason for Switzerland getting involved, because they just want to like just stop this shit now before things get any worse, or the war expands. I think that's kind of I'm sure that there are a lot of elements of Russian government and society that also want that. We've seen a lot of oligarchical members of society there, and members of the government who are like speaking out against war, which is not like something that you would normally see there. So I think that's the reason for that. As far as Putin being a madman, I mean, he's acting irrational, certainly, in some ways. I mean, he's certainly making like a lot of big threats. Does that mean that he's so insane that he's going to start launching nukes? I don't know. I was certainly a lot more worried about the situation over there as far as like nuclear weapons went probably like 24 hours ago. Then yeah, I would agree with this comment.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the thing. Why are they
their economy is crashing. Their economy is crashing, and they're doing this intentionally. As far as debating the efficacy or morality of sanctions is a separate question, but the economic war that is going on is having like a serious effect. So, I mean, I don't know. Like what I don't really know what the end game is here at this point for Putin.
Yeah.
I think, like you were saying, a friend of your show, a friend of my show, Sam Sachs, definitely said, I thought this was really sharp. He said today that we just need to have off ramps for people here, because we need to establish a way for Putin and for Russia to
both sides to
de-escalate. Yeah, in a way that's not humiliating. And anyone who thinks that this war is like done and he doesn't have a chance to win it, I mean, look, Russia could flatten Ukraine if they wanted to. Like, there's no question about that. They have one of the most powerful militaries on the planet. It would be over very quickly if they really wanted to use their full force, which they have not done yet. Like, if they want to just use their full force, they would just roll Ukraine. I mean, it'd be over very, very quickly, and with probably hundreds of thousands or millions of deaths. Obviously, they don't want to do that for a number of reasons. Probably, I think domestically it would be a disaster to kill that many people who have family in Russia. Internationally, it would be a disaster because they'd be pariahs for decades. But they could. So they're unless they want to disengage, there's just really no way that they would lose the war. So what you really want to do is you want to find a way to de-escalate and make it so that it doesn't get more intense, if that makes sense.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.